Hi, and welcome everybody to another edition of the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast. Back for the second time today. Yes, it's Thursday, February 23rd, but I got a different guest. I had two other before. I was joined by Jesse Schul and Joe D'Amico this morning. We covered the NBA for Thursday. I got Doug Upstone with me today, like every Thursday afternoon. We have two NBA free picks for you on Friday as the NBA resumes after a sabbatical with the NBA All-Star Game. But without further ado, Doug, how are you?
I'm doing well, Ross. Hey, we got the NBA back, so things are fun, and it's kind of weird that to have it to be gone that long. It seems like, even though it's only a week, it seems like it's a really long time. And then the other thing too, there's always that first day or two. It seems where there's a little uncertainty because you just don't know how everybody is going to come back. That rhythm that we're used to, and trying to place bets and to make selections, that's thrown off a little bit. But hey, here we are, ready to go yet again.
Yeah, I'm in a good mood. I coming off a 4-1 Wednesday in college basketball, so that's good. 2-0 on my totals last night, which now makes me 31-14 with my college basketball totals since March 11th of last year. So as you can see, very selective, 45 selections, close to a year now. And hitting at 69% when I put those out. So something to pay attention to, folks. You could find Doug over at DocSports.com. You could find me at RBWins.com. Doug, you had something you wanted to discuss in regards to the NBA, some analytical information.
Yes, just before we came on the show, the thought crossed my mind in looking something up, because speaking of Cleveland, who I'll be covering, is that I was looking at defensive efficiency, and primarily for those that are unfamiliar with that. So for every 100 possessions, it's how many points you either score or allow. Okay, that's the juxt of it. And right now, Cleveland is the number one defensive efficiency team in the NBA. Now, their number is 107.1. So for every 100 possessions, that's how many points they're giving up. Now, we've seen where the NBA, it appears to be a much more offensive league right now. And in terms of, and let's just say less defense at the same time. And I got the numbers that really quantify what that is. So, for example, I just mentioned Cleveland's number of 100. I'll just say round it up to 107 because that's what I based it on. Last year, 2022 season, so 2021, 2022, there were 7 teams that were better than that 107. In 2021, there was 4. In 2020, there was 8. And in 2019, Ross, there was 15. Half the league had a better defensive efficiency rating than 107.
Than the top team this year. Yeah.
Right. The top team currently right now in the league. Yep. So what does that mean? So it's got to come from somewhere, right? It's got to come on offense. Okay. Because they have to equate basically. So right now there are a number of teams that are above the rating of 115. Okay, that's what is offense. So you go up. Okay, and right now there are 6 teams that are at that level. Last year there was 5 teams that were above 115. 2022 there was 2, and in 2021 there was 3, and 2020 and 2019 there was 0.
Wow.
So that tells you how the league has really transformed.
And how many this year, Doug?
This year there's 7.
Wow.
That are above that.
Very interesting observation.
Yeah, it's just and it just shows you the transition of the league where teams have gone away. I don't know if it's by the coaches or by the teams. Like I said, it's a whole nother discussion. But in 5 or 4 years, the league has gone from, let's just call it, more defensive to almost no defensive capabilities.
Now that's offensive adjusted offensive efficiency we're talking.
That is correct. Right.
And defensive efficiency. The other thing to look at, if I may add, is you want to look at tempo. And tempo, basically how they measure that offensive tempo is how many possessions you get per 48 minutes of play in the NBA and per 40 minutes of play in college basketball. For obvious reasons, that's the amount of minutes you played during the course of a regulation game, regulation time, I should say. That would be something I'd be interested to dabble into further in terms of the NBA. Because one probably marries the other in that regard. And when I say that, you made comparisons to the past few years and made a good point to show how offense has really picked up this year as compared to the last few years. And I thought those were great examples. I'd be interested how that ties in with the tempo. Our team's playing a lot faster now than they were over the last few seasons. Now, that's a little more difficult to comprehend compared to college basketball because of the shot clocks, right? You have a 24-second shot clock as opposed to a 30-second in college basketball. So obviously, in terms of tempo, you're going to get a heck of a lot more possessions than you do in college basketball. By the same token, you're also getting 8 more minutes added to to quantify that, as you put it. So very good stuff, Doug. And I hope that doesn't confuse a lot of people out there, but at the end of the day, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment box here on our video. We'll get back to you in a timely manner. With no issues at all, but that's some of the stuff that we look at, and especially when you're looking at totals, that's a tremendous help in terms of totals. And I could tell you, I've done really well with my college basketball totals since last year. I mean, I'm on a 31-14 run in college basketball with my totals, and I could tell you, Doug, that I use KenPom to solidify a lot of my totals picks. Now, I look at a lot of other information, but my last stop will be KenPom, and I look at exactly what you said: adjusted offensive efficiency, adjusted defensive efficiency, and what kind of tempo or how fast the tempo does each team play, or how slow a tempo does each team play at. So good stuff, Doug. Very good stuff. And folks, before we get to our free picks, Doug is going to be covering the Cavs at the Hawks. I'm going to be looking at the Kings at the Clippers. And again, those two games go on Friday the 24th. If you're watching this podcast and you have not subscribed, it's absolutely free to do so. Some of the best handicappers in the country, not only myself and Doug Upstone, Jesse Shule of jesseshule.com, Sean Higgs of picksandparleys.net, and Joey D'Amico of sportsmemo.com. So some great handicappers here on this site. Not only do we give you free picks, we talk a lot about betting topics, which Doug brought up today. And hopefully you'll learn something from that. And it's another tool in your toolbox. So if you haven't subscribed, take a second to do so. It costs you nothing. Hover over that OSGA logo you see on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and a subscribe button will come up. Hit the subscribe button, and while you're there, also hit your notification bell, and it will alert you upon any of our Winner's Circle sports betting podcasts going up on this channel, and you'll be alerted immediately. Then you could look and view it at any time you like. I mean, we don't air live like a lot of shows. We have guys with very flexible schedules, but every archive of our show can be found right at our YouTube channel, which is soon to be renamed next week. It's going to be called the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Channel. So again, folks, keep that in mind. And our new sponsor will be gamblersworld.com. And a lot of exciting things coming up in the future, Dougie. But without further ado, tell us about the Cavs and the Hawks, the line, and what your take is.
Yeah, I'm going to focus on the side on this one. And of course, the biggest news going into this game is that Nate McMillan was fired as the Atlanta basketball coach. 6 days after their break. Now, I'm assuming, excuse me, that the reason that it took so long to fire him, it was because the NBA probably told them, don't mess with our weekend. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I think that was the number one reason, but they fired him. 29-30 right now, are the Hawks, eighth in the Eastern Conference. Um, it's funny that the previous coach was fired and McMillan was hired just a little over 2 years ago. And he completely brought a professional aspect to that organization. That season, they finished 41-31. They were fifth in the East, and they upset New York in the first round of the playoffs that year. And here we are 2 years later, Ross, and he's old school now.
If I
Okay.
may add, I believe when they yeah, he is old school. I believe the year they beat the Knicks in the first round, with that coaching change taking place, they also got to the Eastern Conference Finals as well, and they lost in the East. So
That could very well. I actually forgot about that, but I just
yeah,
remember when I looked it up. I looked up New York. I knew they faced New York. I knew they beat them, but I didn't go further than that. But if
yeah,
that's true, that's a great point. So it just tells you. Well,
yeah.
so what's been the problem? Okay, well the problem from all reports is that Trey Young and McMillan McMillan, they just didn't get along. So I look at Atlanta stats. Well, I see that they're 14th in offensive efficiency and 20th in defensive efficiency. Well, if Young's the leader of the team, well, I guess he's got some accountability on that aspect as well. Now, I know you can't fire 12 players, okay? So something else has to give. But part of the problem, I think, with this team is not only does Young, I mean, he's a great scorer and a lot of assists, and everything else, but he handles the ball too much. I think you would agree, Ross.
Yeah.
He dribbles too much.
They become stale on
Right.
offense.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that's a big problem. And then it gets worse when they bring in bench players because Atlanta is only 22nd in bench points in the NBA. So there's nothing to go to essentially when some of the starters are not playing. Now, the Atlanta ended the break, or they went into the break, 5-8 straight up and against the spread. Now they're going to play Cleveland. Cleveland went in red hot. 7-1 and 6-2 against the number. And right now they're a solid number 4 in the East. Now, as we're doing this video tonight, Thursday, Cleveland is going to be hosting Denver. So they'll have to travel to Atlanta. But with a week off, I don't think that has anything to do with how they'll play. Okay, from that standpoint. Now, as I mentioned, Cleveland is number 1 in defensive efficiency. They're number 10 in offensive efficiency. And the strength of that defense is within 15 feet of the basket because they're number 4 in the NBA in points allowed, or shooting percentage allowed for 2-point shots. Okay. So that's really their strength. They got a lot of tall, athletic wing players and centers and forwards. So I think that's a big plus. Cleveland is the better squad in this one. Okay. But yet they're only 13-17 on the road. And when they're a underdog of 6 or less points, Ross, this year, 1-8 against the spread.
Wow.
I'm going to say that Atlanta, for whatever reason, feels more relaxed, okay, as a team with McMillan gone. I think that no one's going to be there initially to bring up the deficiencies, which were true that the players had. And I think they give a strong effort in this case, Ross. So I'm going to say Atlanta minus the 1, and then to win and cover this particular game.
I'm going to say Atlanta minus 115 or minus 120 at a money line. I knew Doug would love that. But Atlanta is his play over the Cleveland Cavaliers, who, they're playing with no rest. But like Doug said, they're coming off the All-Star break. But the big concern with Cleveland is their home and away splits, because at some point, unless they attain a number 1 seed in the East, they're going to have to win some road games down the road to win a series. So, it's a good point and all good stuff, Doug. I mean, you made some great points about defensive and offensive efficiency, what it means. Folks, those are the kind of things you take away and say, not only did he give me a free pick winner, but he also taught me something I didn't know yesterday that I can start to look at tomorrow to make myself a better handicapper. That's what we try to achieve on this show. All right, I'm going to take a look at the Sacramento Kings and the LA Clippers. The Kings, like the Cavaliers, will be playing tonight. We are recording on Thursday the 23rd, and they will be playing tomorrow night as well. So they'll be playing with no rest. because they're hosting Portland tonight, and they'll be on the road to take the Clippers on in the game I'm covering right now. Now, the Kings have gone 6-0 to the over this year when playing with no rest and when there's a total of 239 or less. Well, the current total on this game is 231.5, so that qualifies. And in those 6 games, the average total was 235.4, and there was 255.3 points scored per contest. Can't ignore that. The Kings are also 5-1 to the over in their last 6 overall, with a combined average of 247 points per game scored. They've shot 50% or better in 4 of their last 5 games. They've also allowed opponents to shoot 49% or better in their last 6. So they're shooting the ball real well, but they're not putting up a lot of resistance on the defensive end of the floor, which again goes hand in hand to what Doug just touched upon in terms of the higher scoring in the NBA. The Clippers have gone 5-1 to the over in their last 6 when there's been a total of 229 or greater. And for those of you who have followed the NBA all year, know the Clippers mostly play on the lower side of the ledger when it comes to the total, especially at home. But they've gone 5-1 to the over in their last 6 when the total's been 229 or greater, which likely means they're playing a team that can really score and a team that's not very good defensively. And that's certainly the case with the Sacramento Kings. As a matter of fact, the average total in those 6 games I just mentioned was 231, and there was an average of 241 points scored per game relative to what I just said about the LA Clippers. And, the Clippers as well, defensively, they've only allowed 115.2 points per game in the last 5. I shouldn't say only, because that's not a tremendous number. But what concerns me from a defensive standpoint is over that 5-game stretch, opponents have shot 50.5% from the field and 44.7% from beyond the 3-point line. Offensively, they've shot the ball well at 49% and 38% from the 3-point line and from beyond the 3-point line, and 83% from the free throw stripe. So as you can see, both of these teams are shooting the ball well in recent games and also not defending very good in recent games as well. Now, I said the Clippers, Doug, 22-6 to the under at home, but they've gone 3-2 to the over in their last 5 at home because those numbers have been adjusted. The Kings, by the way, have gone 19-9 to the under on the road, but they've gone over in 3 of their last 4 road games. I'm going to take a chance here, sort of a high number for the LA Clippers, but like I alluded to, the last 6 times they've been with a number of 229.5 or more, they've gone 5-1 to the over. I'm going Sacramento and the LA Kings, wrong sport. LA Clippers over the total of 231.5. Back to you, Doug.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And one of the things, well, 2 things in relationship to the Clippers that seem obvious is that, first of all, George and Leonard are now playing almost all the time. Okay, their thing of always sitting or always being injured or whatever, that has dissipated. So with that, there's 2 things that go hand in hand. Their offense then is better because those 2 guys are playing together and playing more minutes, and because both those guys are also now, I certainly wouldn't call them old players, but I would call them older players, and they're certainly past their prime in terms of defense. Well, when you got those 2 guys on the floor, the numbers that you had talked about where the Clippers were maybe better defensively earlier in the season. Well, now with those guys taking up more of the minutes and being older and not as good defensively, the numbers naturally got to go up for the Clippers for those 2 guys to play. So the offense gets better, the defense gets a little bit worse. No difference when we talked about in the efficiency aspect of the 2 teams. So yeah, I like that. And Sacramento, hey, the Matador defense, baby.
Absolutely. And that's north of the border. Could you imagine if it was south of the border? Anyway, yeah, so there you go. We got 2 picks for you, and you got them. We have the Atlanta Hawks by Doug. He's going to take the Hawks -1 over the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm going to take the Kings and the Clippers over 231.5. Don't forget, folks, at the end of the video, be nice enough to give us a like. It's just a small token of your appreciation for the efforts that we do. This is absolutely free. It's what keeps these videos alive. And we appreciate all your support and all the subscribers out there. We just passed 8,800 subscribers, getting close to 8,900. So it's growing leaps and bounds, and we can't do that without you. So we appreciate that. Doug, final words.
Yes, I just want to let everybody know. So another big weekend coming ahead. I made it on the process, or in the process rather, of making a little bit of run in the NBA. As I've had 5 winning seasons in a row in the NBA. Got a little work to do to make it 6, but I'm close. Okay, and I'm building some momentum. College basketball, just I'm 8-5 in the last 13, but I would certainly be better if I didn't have some bad luck. So the gambling gods owe me a couple. I'm expecting that to be taken care of, hopefully this weekend, by the way, and make something happen there. So yeah, so things are definitely trending in the right way in that direction. And then NHL continue to be rock solid, 26-18 in the NHL, hitting some big plays. And so here we go, another big weekend. And I know Ross would be fixated in his TV watching the XFL week 2 this weekend.
Yeah.
So I know that's on his agenda as well. So Ross, besides the XFL, what else are you going to have going this weekend?
Well, I debating whether to watch Bugs Bunny or the XFL. I think I might lean toward Bugs Bunny. No offense taken. Anyway, yeah, I got a lot of good stuff going on. College basketball, as normal, will be a huge day on Saturday. And after going through a prolonged slump of 8 days, I've bounced back nicely to win 4 of the last 5 days, going 11-6 over that course of time. All of that coming in college basketball, including the 4-1 last night. And like I said, folks, 31-14 with my last 45 college basketball totals. That's 69%. And yes, I use KenPom as a vital part of my handicapping on college basketball totals. It's the same exact theory that KenPom uses, is the same exact theory the gentleman who does the NBA that Doug just referred to uses as well. So something to take from this video and apply it to yourself. And if not, look, all you need to do is go to DocSports.com, find Doug Upstone, rbwins.com, find Ross Benjamin, and we'll put you in the winner's circle with no pun intended. Until the next time, for Doug Upstone and Ross Benjamin, I'd like to wish each and every one of you all the very best. Take care and God bless, folks.